Hello and welcome to another episode of Invalid Entry. My name is James Taylor and we are doing 24 libraries in 24 days, and today we're doing Wikipedia. Wikipedia library, it's got a good name because it does exactly what it says on the tin. It allows you to interact with Wikipedia information from your Python code. It's a really nice little library. One of the things I will say before we get started is that you've got to remember that if you're using this library, you are making web requests to Wikipedia. Therefore, you need to make sure you rate limit and obey the license of Wikipedia on the information that is returned. It's really cool if you're doing something like a Discord bot or an interactive bot or NLP from earlier in the series, where you have a term that you want to look up. You have a noun or a verb and you want to look that up, or cross-reference or provide more information around something. This is a good library because it already does the parsing of the information and breaks down the information into ways that you can interact. So again, when you're writing code, you should be thinking about solving the business problem that you're trying to solve, rather than worrying about the interaction thing. So if I'm writing like a Discord bot, I've got my Discord friend, I'm worrying about the thing the person has said to me and my interaction with that person and looking it up, rather than thinking, okay, how do I now make a web request how do I now encode the URL correctly to Wikipedia? That's what this library does for you. It's a good library in that respect. It even says on here, if you actually go do more powerful things like scraping Wikipedia or mapping Wikipedia, use Wikipedia bot, which actually has a rate limiting other features, so we can be considerate of their infrastructure, because the last thing you want to do is break Wikipedia. You don't want to break the resource that you are benefiting from. Always be respectful of the bigger system, because you're writing an application as part of a bigger system. So with that in mind, let's dive into it. I'm just going to delete here. I was doing a prototype. So import Wikipedia. I just remember what the last thing I typed in here was. So you want to Wikipedia, Wikipedia.search Geronimo, like that. I'm just going to restart my kernel, and there is a reason that I'm doing that, because I want to wipe out my previous cache. So Wikipedia Geronimo, and it comes back with a list of options. So these are the actual pages. So I now can do Wikipedia.summary Geronimo. And I can do that because that's on that list. And that makes a request and gets me back a summary of the Geronimo web page in Wikipedia. You say he's an Apache chief, prominent leader and medicine man from the Apache. It works, okay, it's fantastic. You can also get a page object back, so you can say page equals Wikipedia. Oh, you can limit this if you wanted to say sentences equals 2, just to get 2 sentences back. And you get a pretty reliable 2-sentence, however many sentences you pay, pretty reliable detection of end of sentences and so on. Page of Wikipedia.page Geronimo. And this will give me Wikipedia. It has a lowercase w. It's a module, not a class. This gives me an object back which I can then interact with, so I can then do Wikipedia.images, and it gives me an array of the images on here, so I can go for the first image, which may or may not be relevant. Not sure it is relevant. Maybe there's something else going on that page right now. But Apache Chief, Apache Business, so on. So this works as a way of interacting very rapidly. It's already parsed the page. It's already identified the things of the page. If we look at the original library, there are other things you can do. You can get links, you can get the content, you can get the title, and so on. So and the URL, you can get the URL of the page. So if you're making a bot, you can then say, here's a summary, and here is the page where it comes from. One of the things you can do as well is you can do Wikipedia.setLanguage. I think setlang, yeah. And you can set the lang to any language you like at this point. So we're going to set it to French because my French is just about passable. So when you run that, the next command you run, it sort of caches that setting now. So if I do Geronimo again, I still get the same things, but I start seeing some French results in here. So I now search for the Wikipedia summary. I now get the French version of that, the French media wiki page, rather than the English media wiki page. So it's really nice in that it's a well thought out, quite mature library in that they've already dealt with the multiple wikis. The one of the wikis I like, if you go back to the home page of Wikipedia, you actually have, if I actually go to www.wikipedia.com, you actually have the choose your language one. And there is actually a simple Wikipedia. Simple English. So it's called simple. So if we put that in here, I'm hoping that will pick up. What you actually get back with is a much cut down, easier to read, easier to understand. So that's very appropriate if you've got younger people reading rather than, and especially if you go some of the more scientific things, the language is reduced down to much easier to understand. Because I find sometimes I'm looking something up on Wikipedia and I read the page and I'm like, I understood nothing on that page. If you're reading some of the history pages, that's perfectly fine, but some of the scientific journals I find incredibly technical, and the simple mode can sometimes help. So that's it, really. That is Wikipedia Library in a nutshell. You might find it useful. There's uses there when you want it to be as a reference to something that you're doing or as an add-in. Just be respectful of the license of the content you're putting down. Don't think that because this library is a free library that the information inside it is free, because that, of course, is coming from the Wikipedia Foundation. Wikipedia is a great asset to humanity. I know I joke about Wikipedia at times, saying everything on Wikipedia must be true, because if it wasn't, someone would have corrected it. But I think we should be respectful of the work and effort that people have put into Wikipedia. I think it is really a great testament to what we can do if we all put our minds to it. This is a great little library to interact with it. Just be respectful of how fast you call it. And that's it, really. Yeah, have fun with it. This is Advent of Code. We're doing 24 Python libraries which you may not have heard of or been fun or interesting or powerful in 24 days, and this is the 17th. So if you're enjoying this, please feel free to check out the other videos which are appearing over there right now, and yeah, hit like and subscribe so you get more of these, and I will see you tomorrow, or maybe in a few seconds if you do click the link, for more Python library funs. So why I said funs there, it's not even a word.